welcome back to another Castle Nathria card review. And I actually just got back to my house. I've been traveling the last couple of days, so my apologies. This one's coming in a little later, but perhaps that was fortuitous because earlier today the Sinstone Graveyard got revealed, and then later today a new, slightly different version of the Sinstone Graveyard was then revealed, which appears to be the more updated, more recent version of the text. And there are some slight technical functional differences here between these two cards in operation, but I'm not going to get lost in the weeds there. We're going to focus on the new current version of the card, which you see here in the middle of the screen. And indeed, the Sinstone Graveyard is a 2-mana, 2 durability rogue location. It's going to summon a 1/1 stealthed ghost, and that ghost is going to have +1/+1 for each other card you've played this turn. And the ghost looks like this, the Haunted Conscience. So essentially here, if you play the Sinstone Graveyard on turn 2 and you just use it immediately, if you want to hit the location button right away, you're going to summon a 1/1 ghost. It will not count itself as an other card, of course. So that's just a 1/1 at default. I think the more reasonable line here is playing this on turn 2 and then following it up on a future turn. Like maybe on turn 3, you play a few 1-drops, a Blackwater Cutlass and a couple Gone Fishings, for instance, and then you hit the button and you get a 3/3 stealth ghost, which, hey, that's not too bad. And then the real payoff for this card, of course, is maybe you just leave this sitting on board for a while. You run a deck that includes a bunch of cheap 1-mana cards and then 0-mana cards like Shadow Step and maybe even some coin generators, of which there are actually a handful now in standard format. And then you make yourself a 10/10 ghost or a 12/12 ghost because you go off for some crazy turn playing a bunch of coins and a bunch of cheap cards, probably drawing a bunch of stuff in the meantime, doing the kind of crazy cycling miracle-y type stuff that Rogue has historically succeeded quite well at. And then as a payoff, not only do you get to play a bunch of cards and all the stuff you probably like doing anyway, you also get a giant free stealth minion as well. And because it's stealthed, of course, that might make it really hard for your opponent to interact with the giant ghost that you've generated. And then, obviously, there are follow-ups, things like, say, Cold Bloods or Battlegrounds Battle Masters to make that a win condition, where you give it some extra attack value and then you give it Wind Fury, and maybe you just outright kill the opponent. Kind of like what we saw in Questline Rogue with Scabs getting stealth and then blowing people up. You could see a similar payoff here for the Sinstone Graveyard. And the dev team made an important note already too, is that the minion you make will not be silenceable back to a 1/1. So if we make it an 8/8, that becomes its base stats. A silence will remove the stealth, of course, but will retain an 8/8 value. So it won't go back to 1/1. So that is not an easy answer. Something like a Starfish, plop down, turning it into a 1/1. It'll still be pretty big and still remain a problem, potentially, if there's no removal to answer it. So all in all, this feels like a really nice big payoff. And I'm kind of glad a lot of the location cards so far have felt like these kind of chippy incremental effects, which, while fine, they're things you like to do, they never felt really like decisive enough for me to say, yeah, there are going to be decks that want to run this. Like, this is going to be a really important effect for a deck. Whereas with the Sinstone Graveyard, I could actually see that happening. I think this could be a big decisive effect. I think this is enough that it presents some real problems and a threat for your opponent to deal with that, if not handled effectively, could just be game ending. And I'm happy to see that. So I think the Sinstone Graveyard actually has a higher chance to see play than many of the other locations, or maybe even all of the other locations that we've seen so far. Sinstone Graveyard is a 4-star card. And yeah, we only got one card in this review, so that's it. What do you guys think about the Sinstone Graveyard? Is this the best location revealed so far? Do you think this will make the cut? Is it going to demand too much support? Curious to hear your take on all those conversations and more in the comments below. But until then, thanks so much for watching. And until next time, game on.